Gets a little scary up at the top in terms of breathing. So
That's what I heard. We're doing it one day too, but hopefully everything works out and we're able to rock it.
If the weather's good, you'll be fine.
I got you all beat. I did Half Dome in Yosemite.
There you go.
All the way up to the top. I thought I was going to die for sure.
We did hike the El Capitan before too, so that was fun.
What a great adventure. All right. Should we go ahead and copy and paste that link again, just to see if everybody can log in?
Yeah, we're putting the link in
Yeah.
for the Google Drive.
In the chat box, we're repeating the link for the Google Drive that I sent to all of you in email yesterday. It's super important that you get into that Google Drive. All right. I think we should go ahead and kick it off as people are coming on. All right. All right. Are we ready to go? Okay. Are we recording? We are recording. Let's go. So we are going to be recording these sessions for all of you so you can go back and listen to them. Welcome everyone to Listing Mastery. We normally teach this class in 6 sessions. We are going to be doing a consolidated version in 4 sessions. So we're going to be moving along very, very quickly like we typically do. Because by popular demand, in August, we're going to be doing Quantum Leap and Mindset Matters. So in August, I'm going to focus on your mind and making sure you're bringing things into your life that you want that are positive and wonderful. And so we're going to spend some time teaching Gary Keller's Quantum Leap back by popular demand in August, okay? But today we've got 1 of 4 classes that are going to teach listing mastery. And I see a lot of people here that have taken this class before, and I so appreciate you coming back and taking it again, because you know you pick something up different on each time you take this. So my goal for all of you is that you become listing masters. When you're a listing master and you have confidence and you know what you're saying and you're a fiduciary, you're going to get the listing every time. Extremely rare that you won't get it. Let's start off with CAR and NAR statistics. If anyone knows the answer, they can unmute themselves. How many agents, on average, does a seller interview before they hire the agent to list their home? Anybody know the answer? How many agents, on average, does a seller interview?
1.
2.
Yeah, you got it. It's 1. 67%, almost 70% of sellers only interview 1 agent. The remaining 30% of sellers is split between 2 and 3 agents. So it's extremely rare that you're actually up against someone else. And if you are, it's typically only 1 other person. We know that the first agent on the scene many times is the one that gets it, because they wrap it up, they make it happen, unless they completely blow it and they go to someone else. It's rare that you would lose a listing if you get to the appointment quickly enough and you do your job right, okay? So you've got a really good chance of getting a listing, 70% chance just walking in the door, because most sellers will not interview more than 1 person. Again, in the super high-end markets, sometimes you'll have 2 or 3, but it's rare that a seller will interview 7 agents. That's like less than 0.25%. All right, so let's kick it off. Really important that between now and the next session, every one of you must download every document that's in that Google Drive. All right, I have the buyer folder and I have the seller folder. So you need to get every document that's in the seller folder and download it onto your desktop, because you're going to be lost when we go through the process next week and we start talking about the listing presentation. And if you do not download everything, you won't be able to follow along. Ideally, I'm going to review everything right now. I'd like you to print, even if it's in black and white, I'd like you to print everything in that Seller Mastery Google Drive, with the exception of the 2 catalogs. All right, so let's just start with those. I've put these in the past. There is a seller scripts catalog there. That's over 250 pages. Wonderful scripts for working with sellers and prospecting. And there's a 3612-3 lead generation catalog. That's a 186-page PDF. Wonderful, wonderful components in there. So obviously you're not going to print those, but I want them saved on your desktop because you will print sections of those catalogs when you're memorizing a new way of going about business, okay? So there's fabulous catalogs that we have here at Keller Williams Realty. Don't print those, just download those. But what I do want you to print are the pie chart of the areas where you get listing business. I do want you to print the disc test. For those of you who have never taken the disc, you're going to take it before next week. All right, there's a link here. Very simple. You put the code in. There's 24 questions. You answer them honestly and truthfully as you really are, as your personality really is. Don't try to be politically correct when answering the questions, or the disc will come out wrong. Okay? You want to answer the questions how you truly are when no one's watching. Okay? I also have the listing coordinator task. This is a really great, useful sheet for all of you. You can modify it. It's in Word. And this is a fabulous sheet that basically gives you step by step by step everything you need to do when you take a listing for the on market and for the escrow. It's a super great tool to help you not forget things. All right. Next, I have a sample bio. Many of you already have this sample bio incorporated into your website and your listing presentation if you've been onboarded with Zach or Mary. So this bio is fabulous. I use it generically for people, and you can modify it to fit you, okay, like your years of service, etc. This is a very powerful bio, and it works really well. Also, we have here a fabulous contest entry sheets. You'll notice it's cut in half here. This is when you're holding an open house for your listing and you want to really gather a lot of buyer information and seller information. You hold a contest. We'll get to that in a little bit today, but this is a contest entry sheets. You create them, you cut them in half, you leave them next to a fishbowl at your open house, and you give away something. A gift card typically is the best thing to give away at an open house. Power 20 sheet. You've all seen this many, many times. You need to start building your list of your 20 buyers and 20 sellers. Today we're talking about sellers. The 20 sellers who are going to sell their home sometime in the next year or so. That's your Power 20. In addition, I have 2 samples of the listing presentation. We've got the classic Michael Lewis modern one, and we have the command one. They're both fabulous. And within the next few weeks, Michael Lewis Marketing is going to come out with a brand new 2021. So for those of you who have some of this in inventory, you need to start using it up. Get those books out there. For those of you who have never printed these books, you can print them by hand and see Zach about the cost of getting booklets made. For those of you who are using an older version and you want a newer version, that's great too. But the point is, you need this. You cannot go on a listing appointment without this. And if you create the booklets, they're very professional and very beautiful. These are the listing presentations. They're generic. They don't have anyone's name on it, no seller name, okay? It's part of your listing presentation. They also can be used as a pre-listing package to drop off to a seller's home or mail out. We'll talk about that a little bit in this session. Then I have a sample of a cloud CMA from the MLS. I don't care if you use Cloud CMA or Dash CMA, it doesn't matter to me. As long as you're using a good CMA program that's connected to your MLS, that is what you need to use to go on a listing presentation. And the CMAs are easy to use and they're very beautiful. Okay, I don't want you just going to a listing presentation with comps. That's completely unprofessional. You need a real CMA. And last but not least, there is a PowerPoint in your Google Drive that has the cover of the CMA. See how it matches the listing presentation? Isn't that cute? The cover of the CMA and the last page of the CMA, which is the suggested pricing, okay? These are the pieces of bread that go on top and on bottom of the CMA, and they make a complete sandwich, all right? So when you're going on a listing presentation, it's extremely important that you bring the presentation, which is all about you and what you're going to do to get top dollar for their home, and the CMA. The two of these make the listing appointment. The third component you bring, of course, is a folder with the contract, right? The listing agreement, whatever disclosures you're bringing with you. So everybody very clear, we're going to be spending a lot of time about this. And the people who have employed this technique to do it the right way get more listings. So that's why we're here today. All right, let's kick it off. So the next three sessions, sessions 2, 3, and 4, are all about the presentation. They're all about the listing presentation, what you're going to do when you get there, what you're going to say, how you're going to go through it, how you're going to arrive at value, how you're going to overcome objections. But today is about getting the appointment, okay? Today is about getting the appointment. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can reference some materials here. All right, let's start it off. Number 1, you don't have a listing appointment unless you're prospecting, period, right? You're not going to get power 20 sellers unless you're prospecting every single day. And prospecting requires discipline, and prospecting requires commitment, and prospecting requires a calendar. And for those of you who do not have your prospecting booked out for the rest of the year, you need to do that, okay? It's super important that you book your calendar with the right activities each and every week from now until the end of the year in December, so that you are living up to your schedule, okay? So if I were to look at your calendar in September, I need to see where the prospecting is getting booked. So let's talk about that first. Those of you who have worked with me on calendaring, you know how I kind of like to calendar the week out, right? We like to pretty much do the Monday mornings with the follow-ups for our virtual open houses and the people that we met last week, and following up, putting those people into our CRM, right? Sending them out emails, telling them what a pleasure it was to meet them, calling, texting, connecting with the leads that you met from the previous Monday through Sunday, right? And once we get back to full open houses, which should be hopefully sometime in the near future, obviously you'll have more and more people to communicate with. And if those of you have not mastered Command or your CRM, whatever CRM you're using, it's super important that you hop on for some amazing classes that Zach is going to be teaching, because the power of your CRM is there. You need to use it, okay? Whether you're placing a social media Facebook ad with lead generation forms, or whether you are sending out email marketing, you need to be putting all those leads in your database. It's really important, and tagging them. So now Mondays is a day to do that follow-up with all the leads that you met last week. And it's also a day to go out and prospect if you don't have a listing. So if you don't have a listing on Monday, you need to be prospecting. Typically, if you're a very busy agent, Mondays tend to be very busy with counter offers and opening escrows and wrapping up offers that come in over the weekend. But it's very important that you make a plan to prospect, let's say, your sphere on Mondays. And even if you make 10 calls to friends and family to communicate with them, see how they're doing, and let them know how busy you are, that counts as prospecting. All right, but you got to do something on Monday. A lot of people want to connect with each other, and it's important that you do that. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are your super focused prospecting days. And for those of you who have been in my lead generation class, you know that you have two options. You can do your seller prospecting in the morning, and then your buyer searches in the afternoon, which creates an easier day. So you do your Eat the Frog projects in the morning. You do all of your calling. You do your door knocking. You do the harder work in the morning. You load up your database, clean everything up, do your follow-ups, and then do your buyer work in the afternoon. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, that's a great way to do it. Those of you who want to switch off days, that's fine too, right? But you've got to have it booked out. So if it's calling my farm or calling my expireds or whatever you're calling, you need to book it out. And the calling time needs to include the prep, and the calling time needs to include the database entry after the fact, the follow-up email, the mail out, the handwritten note, the letter, whatever you're sending out to them, they have to have physical mail that goes out each day. Okay, so we're going to spend some time talking about that in just a moment. Fridays, typically, Fridays should be your social media, your posting days, your door knocking and inviting the neighbors to virtual open houses, cold calling, circle prospecting to invite people to your open if you're holding an open that weekend, or some sort of anchoring activity that creates a blast for the weekend. And for those of you who need help with your calendar, we will be happy to help you. I have a format for it. You can reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you with your calendars, whether you're using a Gmail calendar or an Outlook calendar or an iCalendar. We'll be happy to help you. But you've got to have stuff booked every day. So if you're doing Sphere on Friday, you can do past clients and Sphere on Monday. Make those easier days and make your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday super focused, okay? So in your prospecting, which is where we're going to start today, I have the list, the segments of your business. I'm going to pull out that little circle I pulled out before. Let me pull that out really quick. This right here, okay? There are a lot of places to get listings, right? And you don't have to work them all at the same time. You don't have to have all of these firing off together. This is a more mature business. This is somebody who's been doing it for a while, is getting business from all these sectors, right? But it's important that you know where it's coming from. Track your business. Print out this little thing and then write every time you get a listing. Put a number one, a number one, a number one in the pie piece where you got the listing from. It will help you to determine what you're good at and what you're lacking. I'm not suggesting that you do all of these. I'm just suggesting that you track against these. These are the most common sectors. These are 8 sectors, the most common places where your listings are going to come from. So let's start. I've got the geo farm right here, geographic farm. We've got developers right here. We've got open houses right here. We've got referrals from past clients, Sphere, and other agents right here. We've got open houses right here. We've got digital, said open houses already, sorry about that. Digital media, social media, email marketing, all the digital email and all of the e-media is right here. Networking, business networking, and social farming, which is party farming, right? And specialty farms, expireds, FSBOs, NODs, right here. And specialty business farms, which are basically going after segments of the market like attorneys and CPAs, etc. Okay, that's here. It's super important that you pick at least 2 to 3 that you're going to go for and really focus on. And then as you mature your business, you open up new channels of marketing. All right. So what do you think the 2 obvious ones are for anybody trying to get listings? Anyone want to unmute themselves and tell me what the 2 obvious ones are? Simple ones? Anybody?
The Sphere and the neighbors?
Okay, the sphere and the farm, do you mean, or the sphere? Because neighbors would be considered either sphere if they're not your farm, or farm if you live in your farm, right?
Right, farm.
Farm, okay, good. Farm and sphere are obvious and easy, right?
Right.
Easy. Friends and family and the place where you farm. If you don't have a geo farm, the place where you live. And then, of course, open houses are great opportunities because many people coming to those opens are neighbors in the community. Many people coming to the open house have to sell a home in order to buy one. They're just not going to tell you that when they walk in. So there's so much opportunity in Sphere. As you mature your business, your past clients become a great source of referrals. As long as you're mailing that postcard to your past clients and your seller prospects every month, you are going to get great referrals from those 2 groups. So yes, there are simple ones you can start with and just go for it. If you're doing, let's say, a farm and expireds, that's fine, right? If you're calling Sphere and a farm, that's fine. It doesn't matter, but pick 2 or 3 that you're going to really go for until you mature your business, until you get your business to a minimum of 1 listing a month closed, right? Minimum. Got to be at a minimum of 1 closed listing a month. Once you start getting mature, then you're able to afford to branch out into other spheres like specialty farms, business networking, etc. Any questions about this? Okay.
Yes, Veronica, can you explain why you're putting 1 in each one again?
Yes. Every time you get a listing, you can do this for buyers too, guys. You need to know where your business is coming from. Because at the end of the year, if you close 10 transactions, we need to know what bucket did these people come from. It's going to tell you what you're doing a good job with, and it's going to tell you what you're horrible at, what you're not doing, right? So, you know, I tell the story hundreds of times. You've all heard this story ad nauseum. when I was a brand new agent, I did very well my first year. I was a mega agent my first year, but I farmed my little Burbank farm, and I door knocked that farm like crazy. I cold called, I did everything. I didn't take a listing in my farm for 2 years, but I did 25 transactions my first year. It's the anchoring activity of the farming or the culling. That activity creates energy. So energy out, energy has to come back, right? So I would get listings all over the place, everywhere, but not in my farm. But eventually my farm took off, and after maybe a year and a half, 2 years, I took 7 listings on one block, okay? On one block, and continued to do well. The point is the energy of farming, the energy of calling, the energy of door knocking, the energy of any anchoring activity that's repetitive creates a positive feeling in the field, right? In the matrix. And then what you get is a result. You can't not get a result if you've got anchoring activity. The only way you don't get a result is if you got a block, right? We're going to work on that in August. We're going to talk about mental blocks, how you overcome those, right? The only way you would not get results is if you're coming from fear and you've got blocks. Okay, if you're coming from expectation of great things, you're going to get listings. You simply are. So an anchoring activity is an activity that anchors you to a time period, 2 hours, 3 hours, and you're focusing just on that activity. It's anchoring your manifestation into an energy field, and from that, you'll get a result. Simple as that. Very simple. So you've got to understand that if you're not doing anchoring activities, you're not going to get the result you need. Even social farming is an anchoring activity, right? If you go to a party, a wedding, a birthday, a bar mitzvah, who cares where you're going? If you go to something and you have that kind of prospecting hat in the back of your head and you're communicating with people in a meaningful way, and you're getting information and finding things out about people, don't talk to the same people you always talk to at a party. Go to people you don't know, right? We have some people on this call who are brilliant at social farming. They come back with a client every single time they come back from a party, right? So if you're seeing the same people over and over, you need to get out of your space and kind of see new people, right? Get out and meet people. That's all you have to do. You have to meet people. If you don't have listings, it's because you're not meeting enough people. It's a law of numbers. You've got to get out there and meet enough people and talk to enough people. So when you start tracking where your business is coming from, so if you got a buyer and you closed escrow, put a 1 in that open house box. If you got a seller and you closed escrow for your farm, put a 1. And at the end of the year, count up all your little sticks and see where your business came from. The majority of agents that I take on in coaching who are top producers, but are kind of at a level, same revenue every year, where do you think all their business is coming from? They don't grow. They're doing very well, but they stay the same income every year. Where
Sphere.
this is coming from.
So I would say sphere.
That's right. Past client and sphere referral, this yellow box. I will talk to agents that do 18 transactions a year, and they're all from here. That's a problem. That's a problem. Why is that a problem? What does Harma tell you? The number of percentage that comes from new people and the number that comes from repeat. Anybody know those percentages? How much needs to come from new people? What percentage of your business, if you're going to grow?
80?
70.
70.
He has a 70-30 model. Good guess, though, Christine. 70% of your transactions in a year should come from people you never met before, or a friend of a friend of a friend. But 30% should come from your past clients, referrals from your past clients, right? And referrals from Sphere. People who have already know you and know what you do. So if you're not getting 70% of your business from new people, you've got a problem. You're going to stay flat in your income. You're never going to grow. You're never going to grow because your friends, your family, and your past clients are always good for a dozen transactions a year. Hands down. They're always good for 12 deals. But if you're going to stay at 12 deals for the rest of your life, your income's going to stay flat. And so if you're not doing anything new, you're not getting new people. And the more new people you get, the more referrals you get. You see, so that it artificially grows. So if I close 30 transactions, right? I need a third of those to come from my old clients 10 of them, and 20 of them to come from new people. This is something really important when I coach people. The way I know that people are meeting new people is their income does this, right? Grows. The way I know they're just answering the phone, I call them glorified referral agents, is because they're just answering the phone. Now, it's okay to do that once you've gotten to what is called a plateau. So for example, let's say you make 50,000 your first year and 100 the second, 150 and 2 and 250, et cetera, and you get to a place where you're really comfortable. You don't want to hire any more people for your team. You've got a great assistant. You might have a partner, and you're here and you're super happy here. That's great. Then just make sure all your marketing systems are working, and then the phone will just ring and you'll just stay at that number. There's nothing wrong with that. But I coach people who certainly aren't happy with their income, and if they're the same income every year and they're not willing to do anything different. They're not willing to reach out and meet new people. And that's what prospecting is all about, meeting new people. Any questions before I move on? All right, let's keep going. All right, so now let's talk about the fortune in the follow-up, right? At Keller Williams, we always say the fortune is in the follow-up. So many of you are so awesome and dedicated and making your cold calls every day. I'm so proud of you. You do such a good job. And if you're using a CRM like Command, you can book your follow-ups, right? So let's talk about that. And let's talk about follow-ups, and let's talk about what you're supposed to do to get the listing. Many people you talk to don't want to sell today, right? So let's talk about how to categorize them. If you're doing seeds of success or any kind of farming, you know we use the term seller met, right? Seller met. So we've got a farm, or we've got a list of expires of people we don't know, and now we're calling or we're door knocking. The job is to talk to as many of these people as possible. That's the goal, right? Of course we'd like a listing, but the goal is to talk to as many people as possible and have a nice conversation. It's extremely rare that someone's going to hang up and slam down the phone. For those of you who have done it for years, can attest to the fact that maybe 1 out of 10 people might not be pleasant, but 9 out of 10 are not rude. They want to get off the phone, of course. They will converse with you, okay? So if you make a call, hi, Mr. Jones. This is Keller Williams Realty. How are you doing today? We recently listed a neighbor's home over on Hesby. We have a lot of families that are looking to buy in this neighborhood. Would you consider selling your home now or in the future? Or have you considered selling your home now or in the future? Or have you considered selling your home? There's so many scripts. It's only 2 sentences, opening dialogue. No, absolutely not. I'm not interested in selling my home. Well, that's wonderful. Well, it's a beautiful neighborhood. I understand. How many years have you been there? And you get into the dialogue, all right? We do that back and forth. And we can do that back and forth for about 35, 40 seconds, maybe longer, okay? Oh, we've been here 20 years. Great. Well, good for you. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And if you can continue the dialogue, if they're a high I or they're an IS, they're going to want to talk to you. They're going to talk a little more. They'll get a little more into detail. If they're not, they're a D or a DC, they'll probably want to get off the phone quickly. If they're a DI, they'll be pleasant, but they want to get you off the phone quickly. So you've got to really play it. And that's why the disc profile is so important. You've got to know who you're talking to, right, on the other line. But as you communicate, you say, well, Mr. Jones, thank you so much for taking my call today. If it's okay with you, if you'd like, I'd love to send you an evaluation of what your property is worth, just so you can have it handy. Would you like me to send that to you? 80% of them will say yes. 20% of them will say no. Okay. The idea is you want some permission to be able to just give them a quick kind of overview of what their home is worth. Remember, they said no, they're not interested, right? This is the no, I'm not interested person. And many people are afraid to send out a quick CMA because they want to be able to explain it. Sure, of course. But remember, the person said no. This is not a listing appointment, okay? This is a, yeah, sure, if you want to send me something, that's fine. Great, wonderful. I just want to make sure I have your proper email address, or I want to make sure I get your right email address. If you don't have their email, get their email and you'll email them a digital version. And what will you do on the hard copy? Anybody want to tell me? What are you going to do with the hard copy of this thing?
On the doorstep with a handwritten note.
That's right, on the doorstep. Thank you, Christine. For those of you who don't know, you've got to drop off after you do calls, you got to do drop-offs, okay? And so when you're doing a listing business, you have to have your little assembly line and your little machine ready. Many of you are very good at this. You have all your materials, you're ready to go. You got your little factory in your office at home. You've got to be able to follow up. The goal is to get something to them that's collateral material. Collateral, that first collateral material. Now, there's nothing wrong with a handwritten note in your business card. Awesome, right? Awesome. But if they don't want a CMA, then that's all you can do is a typed letter or a handwritten note in a business card. If they're like, sure, you want to send me something, that's fine, but I'm not selling. I totally understand, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much for taking my call today. I'll send something off to you. And if you have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to call me. Have a wonderful day. All right. So what did I do? I just gave them an embedded command. What was the embedded command? I gave them a command to say, look at it, open it, look at it. Call me if you need it. Now, they'll look at it and they might be surprised. They might say, this is crazy. This person's too low, whatever. It doesn't matter. They don't want to sell. But you have to have an accurate range on your little CMA. It's presented. It's dropped off in a nice white envelope. Go to Office Depot and get a nice 10 by 13 blank white envelopes. Get Avery stickers, labels, and make a nice little return envelope with Avery labels, very cheap. So you don't have to pay for custom envelopes. Very cheap, down and dirty, but looks classy, right? You have a nice cover letter or handwritten note. And in there is a little presentation, okay? And if they don't want a CMA, you still need to send something to them. That's this, right? It's the first part of the listing presentation that serves as what is called a pre-listing packet. It's collateral material. And so if you get that to the doorstep and you send them the email with the digital version of it, now they have collateral material at their house. Now, many times a letter or a handwritten note might get thrown away, but I assure you, those of you who have taken this class know this will not get taken away. It's very thin, 28 to 32 pages, but it's everything that you do that's awesome. If you don't have one of these, see Zach, because there's one for every single one of you, right? So it's really important that you have collateral material. That begins step one of the relationship. They're not going to throw this away. I promise you, if you do it right, they're not going to throw it away. If you print it out and it looks terrible, of course they could throw it away, but if it looks like it's nice, they're not going to throw it away. Dan, do you have one of yours here in the office, one of your buyer or listing books?
Okay.
I'm going to grab one of Dan's right now. His are gorgeous. Thanks, I just needed either one. Beautiful, thanks, Dan. Dan Stuvey has the most beautiful, beautiful one. It's this, right, with his style. Thank you. This is Dan's buyer one. This is Dan's seller one. Again, the cover can be anything you want it to be, right? It's just a PowerPoint. It's very simple. And then you turn it into a PDF so you can email it to them. This is the book itself. Okay, it's a beautiful book. And when you get the point to invest in your business, having a full listing business means you need to invest a little bit, right? But we get them printed wholesale. Zach gets a great price on these. They're like just under $3 each, really cheap. So for $100, you can get like 35 of them, right? The goal is you should be giving away in the neighborhood of 100 of these every quarter to 6 months, right? If you want to invest in your business, invest in your business. $300, there's 100 of them. Your goal is to get these into people's homes, okay? Because they will not throw this gorgeous thing away. It looks like American Lifestyle magazine, okay? And Michael Lewis Marketing does a beautiful job with the pieces. We have the command version, and now we're going to have a brand new version. Print a few to get started and start using them. They are going to save this. That seller who does not want to sell their house ever is going to save this. Step one. Everybody clear? Step one of fortune in the follow-up. Now, step two, you book the follow-ups. Obviously, you should have asked permission to stay in touch with them, right? May I stay in touch with you? Is it okay if I stay in touch with you and give you a call in 6 months? Some will say no. Some will say yes. If they say yes, you open your CRM after you put all the information in and you book your follow-up. It appears right at the cover of Command, appears right up on your dashboard on the day you're supposed to call them, right? So you book your follow-up phone call. They're all in your database already. So now when you email market to them, you're going to send them that email every month, right? The sellers get an email a month, so we don't spam them. These are people that aren't even selling. They're just seller Mets. And I'm focusing here first because this is where everybody blows it. They find out that a seller Met listed their property a year later because they never followed up after that first phone call when the seller told them, I'm never selling my home. If I had $1 for every time a seller told me they're never selling their home, and I got a call 3 years later, 2 years later, 1 year later, because I never stopped the follow-up. They got a postcard every month. If they're already in your farm, they're getting one anyway. They would get my email every month. They got this at the beginning, and they'd get 2 phone calls, 3 phone calls a year from me, sometimes 4. So the point is that don't give up on the seller Mets who don't want to sell. So the definition for me of seller Met is I met them, but they don't want to sell. Okay, I met them on the phone or in person, but they do not want to sell yet. No interest. So here I am with my cute little book. I send them the thank you email. They get a postcard every month for me. If you can afford that, it starts to get a little pricey after a while. If they're already in your farm, you're already doing it. And follow-up phone calls. So they're going to get digital marketing. They're going to get email marketing. You're going to friend them on Facebook. They're going to get posts. Do you know Command has this feature? If you don't know, everybody in your database, if you have their Facebook URLs, because in Command you can put their Facebook URLs, right? Under additional contact. If you have the Facebook URL, which you should of everybody, when you do a post, you can actually do a private post on social media just to your Command people. It's really powerful. A video. We have beautiful videos in Command that you can post. So you don't just have to do it to the public or just to your business page. You can do it just to the people in your database. Okay, it's really powerful. So you can send them their email every month. The email is adjust listed, adjust sold, adjust leased, open house, doesn't matter. Something that says you're busy, and then they get 1 holiday email every month. Okay, 1 holiday, 1 business email, 2 emails a month for the rest of the time, forever. That's what the seller Met gets. This is the person that told you they never want to sell. Never want to sell. This is where agents just lose tens of thousands of dollars a year. They just blow off the seller Mets because the seller said they don't want to ever sell. They're not interested today, but someday they may be. Now, why would somebody who tells you they're never going to sell call you and give you the listing a year later? They told you they're never going to sell. You get a phone call, you do all these right things I've told you to do. They get the package, they get a postcard every month, they get email. Why would they call you 2 years later out of the blue and give you a listing appointment? What would change? They told you they were never going to sell. Never. Can anybody answer that?
You kept in touch. You kept in touch.
But what happened to them? Why did they decide
Trust.
to sell? Because they're never going to sell.
They trust you.
They trust you, but what made them decide to sell? They told you they're never going to sell.
Your consistency, they realize now their property's worth something.
And what would make them want to put their house on the market? They told you that's never going to happen. Get off of you for a minute and think about that.
Something changed. Big life change.
Thank you, Prisa. Life change. What kind of life change?
A pandemic.
Death, baby, marriage.
Right. Good job. Death, marriage, baby,
Moving.
divorce, promotion, right?
Job.
Yeah. Relocation. My goodness gracious, guys. If 6 out of every 100 people in California are going to do a real estate transaction this year, did you know that? If you only have 100 people in your database, 5 to 6 of them are actually going to do something, either themselves or their immediate family members. That's an amazing number. 5% of everybody is going to do something. Any list, I don't care what the list is. 5% of it, doesn't that correlate now to the turnover ratio in your farms? 4.85, right? We talked about the gentrification turnover ratio getting higher, right? From 1.9 to probably 3% in the people who have owned 21 years or more, right? Because those life changes are really happening for them, right? right? The median age is 65 to 85 in the over 21, held over 21 years and more in the farm. So you guys got to understand, they say, I'm never going to sell, and life changes. And you want to be the first name they think of when life changes, for the better, for the worse, neutral. But if you don't keep in contact, 2 emails a month, the postcard every month, the initial package, and a couple of phone calls a year, you're never going to get that listing in 2 years and 3 years. But that's called building your pipeline. And when you do it right, the phone just rings. 70% of agents, including maybe on this call, won't take my advice, and they won't do it. And you're going to continue to hunt and peck. And every year is going to be a hunt and peck. You want the phone to just ring with come list me's. Every day when I sold real estate, every day the phone would ring with somebody, some new piece of business, which I then would dovetail into my, obviously my transactions. You've got to be able to create a pipeline that comes to you. That's called inbound marketing, right? Direct response types of marketing. Inbound, that means the phones are coming to you, the emails coming to you, right? You'll randomly get emails from these people, even if they're not going to sell. Guess what kind of email you'll get or a call? Hi, do you sell Pasadena? My daughter is selling her house in Pasadena. You're going to get calls like that. So it may not be the person themselves, but they've been getting your cards every month. They've been getting your 2 emails every month. They got your gorgeous package that they're still holding on to. If they wanted a CMA, they're still holding on to that CMA, especially if they're an IS or an SI or an SC. They're still holding on to your package. It's shocking when they call you 2 years later and they still have the material, okay? And if you're sending the postcard regularly, you can time it. The postcards goes out, the phone call comes in, always. So please, guys, I can't stress this part enough. The people that tell you they're not interested in selling, but they didn't hang up on you, they were at least pleasant, somewhat cordial, and you said, thank you so much for taking my call. Mr. Jones, if it's okay with you, I'd love to send you an evaluation of what your home is worth right now. You could just hold on to it. And if you ever need any update, I'll be happy to send it to you. Yeah, fine. You want to send me one? Send me one. I know what my home's worth already. I totally understand. I'm sure you do. But I'd love to send that out to you. Is that okay? What's your email address? And then they think they're getting an email. They're getting an email and this. You just need that little permission, okay, to send this. All right. We're now going to move on to the next category of sellers. Is everybody clear with the seller met? People I spoke to, I met that don't want to sell in my prospecting. Don't confuse this with sphere, people. Don't confuse this with your friends and your family that don't want to sell. That's sphere. I'm talking about people who you've been proactively prospecting or proactively door knocking, and these people don't want to sell. That's a seller met, all right? A sphere is a family member or a friend of a friend that you've met either in a social gathering or some sort of gathering, and they don't have any real estate need. That's a sphere, okay? A past client is someone who has closed escrow with you at least once. So my brother, John, who owns a lot of real estate, is not a sphere. He's a past client. He's bought a lot of real estate from me. My uncle is not a sphere. He's a past client. Do you want to double tag them? That's up to you. I don't care. If you want to give them 2 tags, that's fine. But past clients are the most coveted of all of your tags in the database, okay? All right, now let's move on to a seller prospect. All right, now that you know what met means you met them either on the phone or in person, and you were prospecting them. So they must have either been a farm, they must have been a circle prospect, they must have been a FSBO, an expired, an NOD, any of the above. They don't want to sell, they're a seller met. Fortunes in the follow-up. 2 emails a month, postcard every month, initial package, and stay in touch. Now let's move on to somebody who possibly does want to sell, okay? Now we're talking about, I'm gonna pull my little sheet here, Power 20. If you get 20 people, you find 20 sellers that are probably going to sell in the next 12 months, 12 to 18 months. That is a massive pipeline, right? $250,000 or more, depending on the price point. Anywhere from, if you're on a team, obviously it's less than that. But guys, 20 sellers, that's what you want. So these are the seller potentials. And many of you have more than 20. Some of you have 40, 50 of these people. That's fabulous, okay? These are people who say, when you call them, well, as a matter of fact, it's interesting that you just called me. My wife and I were just talking. You know, I just got a promotion at work, and I actually am going to be working in Santa Monica now, and I need to find something closer to work. Oh, well, great. That's wonderful. Do you need to sell your home to buy the new home? Well, we might. I mean, I have savings, but I don't know if I want to use that. We might sell our home. We might rent it out. Doesn't matter, right? If you're going to lease their old home, you're going to eventually list it someday. So there you go. Someone who says we might be selling our home because we're going to move. Or my mom passed away, unfortunately, last month. And we're just going through her things right now. And, you know, I got your call this morning. Sorry, I didn't call you back. Again, you have to be able to identify people who may sell in the next 12 months. That's a power 20, okay? And those people require more nurture. Now, is there anything that's different about what we do on that call? Anybody wanna come out and give me an opinion of what that call looks like? After they say, well, yeah, actually, you know, we might be selling our home because my husband got a promotion and we might move to Santa Monica. What's the conversation look like now? What are we doing now?
I actually have a question about that.
Sure.
So typically I would say, you know, do a preview, kind of meet face to face and give them an idea of what it's worth. But with the whole COVID thing, how do you kind of do it differently?
I think probably 60% of agents are taking in-person listings, right? Maybe more. Might be up to 75% now are doing in-person. You just have to use your guidelines. You have to use your mask. You have to have respect. You have to see what they want, what's comfortable for them, right? So it's up to you whether you want to do it on Zoom or whether you want to take it in person. Anybody want to talk about the Zoom versus the in-person listing appointment? Anybody who's had some good experience with that? Because I talk to all of you every day.
I mean, Veronica, this is Victoria. I can talk about that.
Good, let's do it.
So I do not do it on Zoom, and I haven't this entire time. And they've all been fine with it. They've all said if one person wanted to actually just meet me outside and we just sat outside, but 6 feet away, masks on, and it's been completely fine. And I just think connecting with them in person is just so important.
Victoria, you're brilliant. That's exactly the right answer. And Natalie Alcateff, thank you. In person is much better than Zoom. Absolutely. For those that were doing the Zoom appointments, unless you've got it in the bag, which even then, it's extremely difficult because you can't convey energy. You can't see their eyes. You can't see their expression, right? All the nonverbal that goes on in a listing appointment. Because remember, what 90% of the listing appointment is what? Rapport, right? Rapport building, getting them to trust you. And it's hard to learn how to trust somebody on a Zoom call. I'm not saying don't do the Zoom. If you're comfortable doing Zoom and the seller wants to do Zoom, that's awesome, okay? However, if you can get an in-person appointment, I found, and I've been to a lot of people's homes, I found people are very respectful. They'll keep their distance, sit outside, far from each other, fine, whatever you want to do. That it's got to be a comfort level that both you're comfortable with and the seller is comfortable with. Does that answer the question, Christine?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, great. All right. So let's talk about this call. So the person says, as a matter of fact, my husband and I were just talking. He got a promotion and now he has to go work in Santa Monica. So we've been thinking about, you know, doing something when the kids get out of school. Okay. And let's say it's January and the kids don't get out of school till June, right? You've got to still close for the appointment right now. Too many agents say, oh, okay, then we'll touch base in March or April. No, 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 right now. So you have to get to their house right now, because if you don't build rapport, come to conclusion on pricing, they are going to pick up the phone and pick someone else. So it doesn't matter if the listing is 6 months out. Okay. And they're like, oh yeah, you know, we're thinking maybe at the end of the year, we're going to move to Arizona. My husband got a big promotion. He's a VP now at such and such, and we're going to move to Arizona, but it's not until January. He doesn't have his, it doesn't start till January. Oh, well, I totally understand, Mrs. Jones. What I'd love to do, if it's okay with you, is I'd like to just come by the house so I can take a preview of the home and give you a general idea of what the home is worth so that you're prepared when the time comes. Is that okay? Do you think we might be able to do something tomorrow or the next day? Okay. Never same day, right, guys? Unless they want it same day. Why wouldn't I do a listing appointment same day? Anybody?
Preparation?
Preparation, right. Now, have I taken listing on the same day? Of course I have. But you really need prep. You can't just go running around and you know, just take off and not properly prep and practice, right? No matter how many years you've been doing it, you still have to kind of go over it in your mind. Now, granted, if they're willing and able and we're at 9 o'clock in the morning and they're okay with later today, of course I would go over today at 6 or 5 when her husband gets home. That's plenty of time. But if you're talking, it's like 4 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon, I think that's not enough time for you to get ready. But that's up to you guys, all right? But definitely strike while the iron is hot. So you don't want to lose momentum, right? And so, yeah, and also if I said, is today good? I sound a little desperate, right? Oh, would it be okay if I come over today, right? Unless they're at home doing nothing. So it'd be great. Do you have any time available tomorrow on your calendar? And they'll look and they'll say, no, I got to go to the doctor tomorrow. I got to take my mom downtown. Oh, no problem. How about Thursday? I'm going to go to the 2 or 4, right? I'm going to keep going until she locks me into an appointment, right? You've got to get an appointment if they even are thinking about it, okay? We have a saying, you need to get into as many living rooms as possible, okay? Get into as many living rooms as possible, all right? When you're door knocking, that's really important too. You've got to be able to connect, rapport build. And when you see the home and you're able to convey your appreciation for what they've done for the home, you've created rapport. So close for the appointment, even if they're not selling for 6 months, okay? And say, it would be great if I could just come over. I'd love to just come over, take a look at the home and give you an idea of what the home is worth, okay? I'm preparing for a full-on listing appointment, am I not? Of course I am. But I just want to get over there and see what would be a good time. Of course, you want to have both decision makers there, right, everybody? Both decision makers. It's kind of hard to do a listing appointment with just one of them. Tends to be a problem, okay? So I'd rather wait for the husband to get home from work or the wife to get home from work and do both of them together. All right. So now we're going to close for the appointment. Now, if they're willing to say, yeah, tomorrow would be fine. If you guys want to come tomorrow, that's fine. Great. Wonderful. So what time does John get home from work? About 6. Okay. What would be comfortable for you guys? After dinner? Great. Do whatever. For those of you who take a lot of listings, what's the most common time that a couple will have you over? Depends if they're self-employed or not, right? What's the most common hour that you will take a listing? Go on an appointment. Anybody? Okay, you're gonna see people fall. Thank you, Natalie Alcatef. Appreciate the answer. 6 o'clock, yes. Usually 6 p.m. is the most common time that you take a listing appointment, that you actually take a listing. It's rare to do them in the middle of the day. Not that it's not. If you have 2 self-employed individuals, you can go anytime you want. If you have 1 self-employed individual or 1 homemaker and somebody who works a typical job, you've got to work around that person who's got the W-2 job, because they've got to be home for this appointment, okay? But again, there's a lot of self-employed individuals. There's a lot of people that have their own businesses. That's fine, right? But close for that appointment within 24 to 48 hours, okay? More than 48, they're going to cancel on you. So close for the appointment as soon as possible. Now, what kind of information in this last 5 minutes we have to wrap up? I need to do a little bit of pre-qual before I get over there, right? So what kind of questions should I ask in preparation for going over there? Mrs. Jones, so that I have everything ready for you, can I ask you just a few questions about the house? Oh, Christine, you're asking for motivation, right? Thank you, Natalie, Christine, thanks for those answers. Okay, yeah, motivation. We already know the motivation. She told us, right? I got that in the conversation.
Veronica.
I'm sorry?
Don't we want to ask if they've remodeled or done anything to the house?
Yes, Christine, you said why, so I thought that was motivation. Christine Reagan? Okay, we already determined motivation about a minute
Yes,
ago.
it was motivation.
Yeah, motivation, we already figured it out, right? When they said, well, I might be thinking of selling, well, they're not going to just stop talking. They're going to tell you, well, we might be leaving the area, whatever. You'll get the motivation before you close for the appointment, right? So you ask a few questions. The first one is, of course, have you made any changes or remodeled the house? Super important. Mrs. Jones, have you done any remodeling on the home in any of the rooms? Oh, yes. We completely remodeled our bathrooms and our kitchen. Wonderful. About how long ago did you do that? So the first question is the remodel question, right? Oh, we did it about 15 years ago. Okay, great. Wonderful. Great. And how about like your plumbing and your roof? Do you know how old your roof is? No, I have no idea. It's the way it was when we bought it. Oh, great. How many years have you been there now? So how long have they lived? Remodeling that they've done. Roof and plumbing are important to me. You know, it's important to know, like, no, we've never changed the plumbing. We've been here 30 years, right? Or I don't know how old the roof is. Wow, we've been here at least 20 years and we've never changed the roof. Just to have a little idea, right? So remodeling, systems. What else do I have to ask? Before I get to that last one that Natalie threw in there. Okay, so remodeling, when did it happen? How are your systems, like your plumbing, your roof, your heating and air, right? That kind of stuff. It's super important to get a little bit of that information, right? So they're telling me about their remodel and what they've done. Hey, have you ever added any square footage to the house? No? Okay, great. Yes. Oh, great. Did you do that with a permit or did you do that without a permit? Oh, I don't remember. My husband did it. I don't remember. So you're trying to get some dialogue going. Great. And Mrs. Jones, how much do you owe on the house right now? That's the last question. How much do you owe on the house right now? Make it very casual. How much do you owe on the house right now? What do you mean? Like my mortgage payment? Well, if you were to pay off your mortgage right now, Mrs. Jones, how much would it be to pay it off? Oh my, I don't know. My husband has that info. I think maybe about 400,000. So they're not always going to know the exact if they're not a C, high C, right? So you just want to kind of have a rough idea because remember, you can't look up that information. Contrary to popular belief, you can't look up what they owe, right? You guys understand that, right? Cannot look up what they owe. Nobody can look it up except you can go into a database that you can pay revenue for. Loan officers sometimes can, but you can't. Title only tells you what the mortgage was when they recorded the trust deed. Okay? That's all you know. Can you take a guess? Yeah, I prefer not to take a guess. I prefer people refi all the time with small lenders and we don't even see the new deed on file yet. So please ask them. And how much do you owe on the mortgage right now? Great. And some people will say the house is paid off. Congratulations, Mrs. Jones. That's wonderful, right? I also like to ask them when I get to the house about whether their mortgage is included, their taxes and insurance are included, but we don't need to worry about that right now. So all I care about is remodel. How long have you lived there? How old are these different remodels? How about your systems, your plumbing and your roof? Were they the same as when you bought them or have you upgraded them? And how much do you owe on the mortgage right now? Super important. If you don't know what they owe on the house, you're going to be very ignorant when you go over there. How do you know what their LTV is right now? What if they bought it in 2018 and it was 5% down? Okay, you got to know what you're going to say. And if you don't know how much they owe, you don't have that fiduciary confidence to be able to have the conversation. All right. And then we say, well, great, Mrs. Jones, I so appreciate this. I'm going to be able to have some information ready for you tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you and your husband tomorrow at 6 p.m. Great. Great. What's your next step? as we wrap up this call? What's your next step to get ready? Anybody? All right.
CMA?
Yeah, got to get working on that CMA, right? I'd like to drive by and take a picture of the front of the house, right? It's ideal so that my CMA is pretty, right? I like to always put a picture of the front of the house on my CMA. It makes it look more professional. See my little CMA? Got a picture of the front of the house, right? So drive by. If it's not far, if it's too far, don't worry about it. But if it's close enough, do a drive-by. I like doing a drive-by because I want to see curb appeal. Somebody might have remodeled the whole inside and the outside looks horrendous. I cannot tell you how many homes I've listed that I was shocked, and I will go in the house, it's completely remodeled, but the outside looks horrendous. So super important, do a quick drive-by if you can. If you can't, that's okay. Get working on the CMA, and that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Close for the appointment. Close for the appointment every time, even if they're not going to sell for 7 months. Don't put pressure on them to say you're coming over for a listing appointment. Is it okay if I come over tomorrow? I'd love to just come and take a quick look at the house, give you some idea of what the home is worth, but I'd love to do that when both of you are home. Sure, if you want to come over tomorrow, that's fine. And you set it up. Your goal is to get into the living room. That's your goal every time. That's a seller prospect. I look forward to seeing all of you next week on the Zoom channel. Do we have any last minute questions? If you do, unmute yourself now.
Veronica, quick question. If you have a seller who you did do a phone kind of listing presentation with, decided not to proceed with me, listed it, didn't sell the property, that condo price never got reduced, and then this was listed prior to COVID, through the whole COVID period, he still didn't sell it, it's now canceled and removed. How do you approach that? Revisit that conversation because it's no longer an active listing.
Okay, well, as long as it's canceled, you can go back and you want to set an appointment is what you want to do. You want to give them a call, say, hey, I noticed that the listing hadn't sold yet. I would love to see if I can come by and, speak with you about it and see how we might be able to do something to make sure it gets sold, because we don't know why it's canceled. It could be that they had a price that was outrageous. They're not willing to make a change. You've got to go back and go after it if in fact it's canceled.
My thought is if he's not going to be flexible on pricing, he had not reduced it in these 6 months and he stays the same, where do I go from there though?
Great question, Teresa. So you think that particular seller is still not going to be reasonable, right? Eventually there's going to be an agent that will sell the home, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the third or fourth listing agent that sells the home because they have to wear down over a long period of time, right? But why not try to be the second? Right? Why not try? Because I mean, what's the worst that you're going to get from it?
I know again.
Buyer leads, right? Buyer leads. So the worst that you'll get from it are some buyer leads.
Oh, you mean if I take it on and he's firm on price, open up the door, it still doesn't sell. If anything, I get buyer leads. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. Okay. Maybe even some seller leads as well, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect.
It's not to say that you're not going to put all your power into it. Of course you will. It's not to say that you're not going to try to bring them to the right number. Of course you will. Now remember, there's 3 reasons why people are overpriced. We're going to talk about that. The emotional seller, right? We'll get into that next week. But remember, 3 reasons. They're coming from, first reason, everybody remember what the first reason is? Why a seller's overpriced?
Unreasonable.
They're coming from pride. Right? I put too much into this house. They're coming from resentment. I paid too much for this house. Or they're coming from fear. I have to have this much. It's an emotional reason. It's not a logical reason. If they're operating at logic, then they will price it logically. If they're operating from emotion, they're going to price illogically. We'll get into that whole consciousness conversation next month. But the point being is that if they're overpriced, they're coming from an emotional reason. I want to recoup the money I put in this house. That's pride. Look how beautiful my kitchen is. Look at all the money I put in that bathroom. Pride. Number 2, resentment. I paid too much, or I paid too much and I put too much in. Or number 3, fear. I have to get this much money out of it. Okay? It's always an emotional reason. You just got to figure out which of the emotions are coming from and try to work on that particular emotion. All right, guys, we are over, so we're going to go ahead. We did record this. Yes.
May I ask a question? A quick one. So you said that if in January they're ready to sell in June once the kids' school is done, and you ask them, hey, do I have permission to come tomorrow? Or can I come see you tomorrow? What if they said no to, you wanting to close there and then?
Okay, then just say, great. Well, what would be a better time for me to come? How would you like me to call you in March and set something up then? You've got to close for the next appointment. All right. Well, would you like me to come maybe in March or April? Yeah, that would be a lot better. Okay, great. What I'll do is I'll call you in March, Mrs. Jones, and we'll schedule a time for me to come. All right. That's all you do.
Veronica?
Yeah, I see another question. Profiles. We're going to get into profiles next week. Okay.
Veronica?
Yeah.
I missed the first 20 minutes. How could I rewatch it?
Yeah, this is being
I
recorded.
was just going to ask that.
We're going to put this on.
Where?
We're going to put it in our YouTube page, and Dan's going to send out a link. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
All right. All right, guys. I'm sorry we're way over. Thank you so much. I'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
So much, Veronica.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love her. She's amazing.